Welcome, welcome, welcome to Her Story, Our Story, 1 hour of power. Y'all know who I am, Dr. Stephanie Wall, the Tower of Power, your transformation architect. Man, we got a show for y'all tonight. I know you say, Dr. Steph, you always say you got a show for us tonight. Because I always do. All right, for those of you for the very first time, welcome to Her Story, Our Story, 1 hour of power. You say, what is this all about? This is a place for women who, like many of us, we know what we want in life. We don't always know how to get it. We also think that whatever it is that we are experiencing in life, we are in fact the only ones experiencing it. And it oftentimes keeps us held hostage. So for decades, moments, centuries, long periods of time, we don't move forward with the things we dream. So I created a platform like this exact one, to bring women just like you, just like me, to come forth and share who they are, whose they are, why they do what they do, and what they had to overcome to get where they are. So listen, let's just jump right on in. I want you to meet our guest, Dr. Taniko. I'm going to bring her on up right now. But before we begin, OMG, if my co-host Hope was here, she would say, no, you did not open that up without being opened up in decency and order. So, Father God, we come to you as humbly as we know how, thanking you for today, thanking you for our guests tonight, thanking you for all those women and those people, those humans that are watching and seeking to glean something, to see more of who you are through who we are. We just thank you for being all that you are so that we can show up as who we are. All right, let's go. Dr. Taniko, come on up, gal.
Hello. Hey.
Yeah, thank you for your yes. Thank you for your yes.
Thank you.
Everybody that comes on this stage now, this is the thing. We can't even let you get into the meat and the potatoes until you first answer this couple questions. See, I know you can be like, Doc Steph, what questions? Now, this is the thing. We want to know that if today, right now, in this very moment, if you could just go and get on a plane, just go anywhere in the world, just to relax, relate, and release, where would it be? Would it be somewhere hot, somewhere cold, somewhere in the wilderness, somewhere in the desert? Where would it be?
I am going to Jamaica. The food.
Baby, let me tell you that. Okay, now wait a minute. You going to Jamaica last week? Dr. Joanne said she going to Jamaica. Everybody going to Jamaica. Man, we coming to Jamaica. All right, I'm with it.
Yes. Shoot, we gonna eat good. We gonna have a good time. We gonna be with family, so it's gonna be all good.
That's all facts. That's all facts. We're gonna be laid up on the beach. A matter of fact, we didn't gotta have a beach. We're just gonna be having to just relax and relate and release it. So I want to know, where are you in the world, Dr. Taniko?
I am hailing from Texas, but I am a native of Sacramento, California, born, reared, and raised. So I have to give credit for, where I come from. So I'm here in Texas, but I'm from California.
Okay, y'all, listen. By way of Cali, she is in Texas. Okay, yeah. So Dr. Taniko, well, before we even begin, one of the things that we want to know, this is another thing we ask every guest. We try to make sure, sometimes we forget, but we try not to. What is your 6-word story?
Oh, my 6-word story is from From the trenches, not the towers.
Wait, say it again. From the trenches,
not the towers.
Not the towers. Okay, wait a minute. I want you to do one more thing. So right now, your picture looks a little blurry for some reason. Just and then could be anything. Just wipe it off for me. Use a paper. We live, but we keep it live. I want you to take something and wipe off the lens of your camera because you might have touched it. You might have touched it because before we got started, wasn't looking as blurry. Y'all, stay with us. Stay with us. And I know
Hold on. Hold up. Is that better? Or
that is better. Yes, that is better. All right. Because I was like, wait a minute, where's Dr. Tico is blurry on me? All right, now you're down here and I'm up here. All right.
Is that better?
That is better.
Okay.
Whatever you now, I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden it's still a little blurry, but it's like it's not the camera. Did you do something else to it before since the last time we talked?
No.
Okay, well it's not horrible, it's just got a little blurry. Okay, now. So I want you to tell me what does that mean? Let's say it again.
From the trenches, not the towers.
From the trenches.
And basically what that is representative of is that I have lived experiences. I'm relatable, and I identify with those who have been marginalized or disenfranchised. And as a result, my social capital has been the grace of God, who has positioned me to thrive in my purpose and not my passion. So from the trenches, not the towers. So life wasn't no crystal stair. I didn't have it all good. Didn't have a silver spoon in my mouth, but my experiences are my experiences. And I am who I am as a result of not being from the towers, rather from the trenches.
And that is a great segue into, so not from the tower, but from the trenches. I like that. So when you say you have lived life experiences, now one of the things that on this show, what makes this show so great is that we all have a story. Some of us have gotten a little bit more courage and been able to share it. Some people, they're not there yet. And we good and we understand it.
Right.
But the beauty of this show is that there are women from every walks of life that come on and they either listen or they're a guest or they're a member of HerStory, OurStory. And this is the thing. The one thing that connects us all together is that we all have a story, but that there are some women that are willing to share their story,
right,
so that someone else can get on the other side of their pain.
Mm-hmm.
To get to know that they're not alone on this journey, that they can, because it's not always domestic violence. It's not always this. It's not always that. And it's never the person you expect or the story that you expect, like ever.
Right.
So I want to know if I was sitting on a bench, like I'm thinking about Forrest Gump, he's talking about that box of chocolate, but I'm sitting beside you and we're sitting waiting for the bus, we're waiting for hours. And I say, hey, Taniko, what is your story? What would you tell me?
I would tell you that you're absolutely right. Everyone does have a story. And for me, I'm going to share only a snippet of it, unless I'm led by God to say more. But ultimately, I grew up in the child welfare system. And while I was in the care of the child welfare system, I was very curious. I had a plethora of experiences that I believe required some answers. And so I would ask a lot of questions. And I thought by me asking questions, I was exercising my critical thinking skills, seeking clarification, taking ownership of my voice. I thought I was doing all the right things that I'm supposed to be doing. But for people in positions of pseudo power, and let me define what I mean by pseudo power, the people that wear those titles and they feel like they own you because they have this title of being an executive director or being a supervisor or whatever that pseudo title is, I feel like at times it negates how they are showing up. So as a result of this pseudo power that was emulating between the system I was in, I was seen as defiant, I was seen as argumentative, I was seen as aggressive. And I would often overhear them saying, the nerve of her. how dare her question authority? I mean, she had a lot of nerve. And I was like, this was a sign that I was supposed to be silent. I wasn't supposed to ask too many questions or ruffle any feathers. I was supposed to stay in my lane. And since I was out of my lane, I was seen as a problem. And, you know, for me, being seen as a problem meant that I was non-compliant, right? And so I didn't foresee myself staying or being comfortable with the status quo. So in my human nature, and my trauma and all those unresolved things, I grew to understand that I couldn't rely on the system who was supposed to take care of me. I can only rely on myself. And in relying on myself, I couldn't let Taniko down. Not Dr. King-Jordan, Taniko. I couldn't let Taniko down, but Taniko couldn't navigate the world relying upon someone else who was also charged with taking care of me and making sure I was okay, because I couldn't even have a voice. And so this will be the way I navigated the world from adolescence to young adulthood and well into my adulthood. And once I became this full-grown, unapologetic Black woman of color with all these intersectional identities, I determined, for myself, that I was going to live in my truth on my own terms, and I was going to be the one to, you know, define what success was going to look like for me. And albeit, you know, my time in care meant that I was going to interface with trauma, and I was going to have to grapple with my abandonment issues and my mistrust and my low self-esteem and underlining factors like homelessness and food insecurities or molestation. That all impacted my perception of self. And as long as my trauma was left unresolved, it was going to continuously interrupt my psychosocial development, but also my mental and physical wellness. And so I had to, you know, be committed to wanting to do something different.
So you talked about a lot, and I know because if you want to hear more and learn some other things, then you're going to have to come to the Mission Brand New You conference from Dr. Taniko King-Jordan. But I do want to talk about a couple of things. So I will tell you, there are what I'm learning. Like I will tell you that even though we've been in speaker meetings and we heard some things, yet there were more things, and I had more things in common with Dr. Westcott than I even knew prior to our interview. And it was almost like, your story is my story. So I want to ask you, how often do you get the opportunity, or in the last year or so, or 2 years, or even over since adulthood, how often do you have the opportunity to just have, you're somewhere that you had no intention of having this conversation, but somehow, some way, the Holy Spirit leads you to have to reveal if your past to help somebody else get past theirs?
I commonly don't share because it's seen from a deficit model. It's like, if I'm sharing, then I have these other motives for sharing. And so I've gotten to the habit of sharing if it's relevant to helping somebody get through something. But if it has no relevance, then I'm not going to share. And so being on this platform, HerStory, OurStory, it gives me an opportunity to let people know that it is okay to share your experience. And I know, as a member of the transition age foster youth culture, we don't have to tell each other story. I don't have to go and share my tragedy and my trauma with you, because you already know. If I say that I'm a youth or a youth who left the child welfare system, then it's, I already know. But I think oftentimes what's not discussed is the resiliency that we have. We're always seeing from the stereotypes, this deficit lens. And so it makes it difficult as a professional now to be very open to sharing that, because people see it as something more than, what it is. And of course they think they're the experts on me because They have their books and they have their articles. And so that makes them the expert. But it's my experience.
And I like that you said you only speak when it's adding value, but the reason you don't is because sometimes it's seen as a deficit. And so you know what? And and people are from a deficit lens. I love that you said that. And I love that you said that the conversation needs to be more around resilience than around the tragedy, if you will. So speak to that. Speak to that, and that I think that is a great segue into the fact that whatever your background is, to speak to that, speak on it from the point of resilience versus staying in the story.
Right.
Like you're not looking for sympathy. You're trying to help somebody else.
Yeah.
That is not your motive.
Right.
Well, we know some people that is their motive. They're still living in the story, and so therefore in that story they've not got on the other side of it. They don't feel resilient.
Right. And it's gonna be days where you don't. I don't feel like being resilient every day, but that's why I created, leverage your impact, right? Because I wanted to support those who self-identified as helping professionals, those people that work with the lost, the least, the last, and left out, the people that have been forgotten, those individuals, those families, communities, organizations, all of that, right? And albeit my experiences encapsulate my work with adolescents exiting the child welfare system, my call to action has always been to develop thought partners and to utilize my ability to train, my ability to coach, and my ability to consult with them while working alongside them, to elevate their existing skills, right? To nurture their knowledge, right? And to even operationalize their values so that they can deliver best practices to these vulnerable and marginalized groups in a way that is culturally responsive. And so that's why I developed Leverage Your Impact. As a result, I knew that if I were just going to come and say that I'm this social worker and I've been in the foster care system, that wasn't going to be enough. And that has never been enough. And so my why is really about how do we help other people who have been called to work with the people that have been forgotten, the lost, the least, the left, and left out, in a way that's going to be meaningful, in a way that's going to empower them to identify their own version of success. So
I love that. And so, I was just on, see my little cup here. I was on Tony's Tenacious Table Talks yesterday. It's a podcast. And, I got a cup. I love that cup. I told her, girl, you're going to see this cup because I was enjoying it. But one of the things that she created, that podcast for people that have tenacity, to have the tenacity to tell their truth, but to have this table talk, to the women come together and even men come together to a place where we can talk about those tough topics. But I want to ask you this. Tell me, you talked about leverage your impact. What is leverage your impact? Like, what is it and how do you serve with that? What is it all about?
So basically it's about giving people an opportunity to, have you ever worked a job and you were just so burnt out, like I don't have anything else to give? Your work becomes very marginal at best. And I've been there. Like I worked for, some counties doing child welfare, and I was burnt out. I had nothing to give. And I knew my work ethic was becoming trash because I was so tired. I just wanted to get the notes in. I didn't want to spend the quality of time that I spent with the families. I didn't want to do that in my work. And I feel like whatever time that you're spending with someone, right, documenting accurately is important for you to say that you did what you did, but also to give credit to what the clients are doing as well. And so because of burnout, your cup is not full anymore. It's very empty, right? And so I wanted to give helping professionals an outlet to let's redefine them tools a little bit, because we can get so jaded that we forget why we are here in the first place. And I just want to be a reminder to those helping professionals, and even those aspiring helping professionals, the students who are seeking to enter my profession specifically. I want to make sure that they're equipped with the skills to do it effectively, because when you have people's lives in the palm of your hand, there's an expectation that you're going to show up for them in a way that is not going to impede their dignity and worth. Rather, it's going to enhance and elevate them. So that's the real premise for me developing. I work with a lot of people, and I'm seeing work that is not, it's not even okay. And I wouldn't want those people to work with people that I care and love about. So if there's an opportunity or an outlet for people to, you know, take a step back, do an inventory on themselves, right? Be accountable and own what they need to own. I want to help them grow and develop in a way that they can continue to do the work that they have been called to do in a meaningful way.
I love it. So tell me, so when you serve, and now do your clients, are they all counselors? Are they all medical professionals, or are some of them also coaches that are in that lane?
It's everybody. So it could be, you know, aspiring students, like in field of social work, like when students do their internship, they have what we call a fitness to practice. Like, do they have the knowledge, skills, and values to work with the population? Mm-hmm. So even for those students who are on the fence, like, I don't know, you're a little bit, I don't know, you know, they could come and we could have a group conversation and meetings and have individualized plans that can get them back on track to being fit to practice in the profession. So it's social workers, it's, you know, mental health clinicians. It's just a plethora of different people who desire to work with vulnerable and marginalized groups, because each profession has their own code of ethics. Right. So it's going to look a little bit different. And so for me, just building those foundational tenets and having, you know, I believe in discourse, so I believe in having critical conversations to assess and redirect. And so that's kind of what we focus on.
And one of the things, and I like that you said that. So when you know, we know that wherever we are in life, our mind got there first. And if your mind didn't get there, you're not there either. That's what we like to say. You ain't there either. So what is something that, like, if you had to, for those people, now I want you to speak to two different people. First, I want you to speak to those people who are those folk you are referring to right now, those people that are in the field doing the work right now, and they're burnt out. They're burnt out. They don't even know they're burnt out, but they know that they're crying, they're in their car, just exhausted, don't even know what's really going on with that. And then I want you to speak to that person who they are excited and considering it, but they don't know if it's for them. Like, I mean, they're not even on the fence. They just think that maybe that, you know, they had the skill set. They would probably be the best candidate, but they don't think that it's for them, because they don't think, based on their background, that they should be helping anybody get to their next.
Right. I believe that if you have a story, then you have the opportunity to serve and give back. I think that it makes you more human, having a story, having experiences, than you not. I don't want to work with somebody who ain't been through nothing. I don't want nobody telling me about kids if they don't have any. So for me, it's taking an inventory of yourself, understanding your body, right? There's this book called The Body Keeps the Score. And it really just talks about all those other elements. So I think it's important to be in tune to what your body is telling you. Mind, body, spirit. You have to be in tune to what your body is saying. Because helping professions, it's not for everybody. And I think that it's a gift if you do have the capacity and the bandwidth to do it, but you can't do it haphazardly. You have to be all in or not in at all. Because clients are going to know how you're showing up. Are you showing up simply for the money? They gonna know that, and you're not going to be able to do one of the basic principles of building rapport, because they're not going to trust you from the gate. So I think taking an inventory of yourself, what are your strengths, what are your limitations, is going to point you on the trajectory of where you probably should be headed. Otherwise, you can help in a different capacity. It might not just be with working with people that are already vulnerable. So it might look a little bit different, but over time, I utilize these articles. Like I'm like an information snob. I like to read. I like to know a lot of different things so I can have critical conversations, right? And so I have read this article in the Essence. I read articles in the Huffington Post. I read a lot of peer-reviewed journals and books like The Body Keeps the Score. There's this other book. It's called Hush Buddy. I've recently read this book called Mindset for Mindfulness, White Rage with Dr. Carol Anderson. I just read, but I feel like you have to have a breadth of knowledge so that you know what your why is. And so in reading these different books and these different genres, I had to develop my own human, I had to delve into what my own human development was across my lifespan. And I don't know if many of you are familiar with Erikson's age and stage of development, because I think this is where we might get it wrong. So for people that are not familiar with Erikson's ages and stages of development, he has like 8 stages, right? So he has the trust versus mistrust. He has the autonomy versus shame and doubt, initiative versus guilt, industry versus inferiority, identity versus role confusion, intimacy versus isolation, generativity versus stagnation, and then the ego integrity versus despair. And these are all the stages across the lifespan. If I were you all, I would Google it. But I found that if you have to, in order for you to successfully navigate through these different stages, you have to go through the psychosocial crisis, and it has to be achieved. And so for me, when I go back and I examine all these different stages, I believe that I have been stuck at stage 5, identity versus role confusion, which can typically occur between 12 and 18. And I know this to be true. I know that this is not a stage that I successfully completed because I was exhibiting this unwillingness to express my thoughts and ideas. I lacked confidence. And then I had the nerve to be audacious enough to apply for college, which was something that I was told I wouldn't be able to do. And the college had the nerve to accept me. They let me in, right? And then it was over. And I believe that, leaving California, getting a different experience was going to allow me the opportunity to reinvent myself so that I could fit into what mainstream society was looking for. And the more I realized that, a lot of BIPOC or Black, Indigenous people of color, women of color specifically, in leadership roles was experiencing the same type of role confusion, if you will, in their pursuit to become the best versions of themselves. And so for me, it took me to go back a little bit in my self-evaluation process or my self-reflection process to kind of figure out where the gaps were for me, and then to move forward from that point.
I like that I was when you talk about The Body Keeps the Score, I was like, oh, I literally trying to look for my book, that book, and I was like, oh my gosh, because I love to read. I love to, like if you are in this lane of where you're serving other people, you better darn sake be really researching, studying, and everything that you are absolutely that you are unique of oh my God, methods that you are going to be using or anything you'll be doing with any of your clients, you better certainly have done it yourself first.
Right.
As a coach, they said before every coach was first coach, they coached themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Right. You better not be out there with putting any type of anything together. Even if you're as an educator, you have your curriculum. Well, does it make sense to you? And how do you know it works?
Right.
And so it must first be tested.
Mm-hmm.
And the first person that should be tested is you. Does it work? Do you believe it?
Right.
So I love that. And I put it in here, but for those of you that are going to be watching on social media or YouTube, we'll put it in there as well. But books, everybody, I've learned 3 adult sons, so they all have different learning styles. And the one thing that I found out is I love books, and I said, "Hey, get this book." They would get that book and be like, "Oh, this is nice." They ain't got time, and they're not interested in sitting down to read it.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that some people, the audio book is their friend. For those of you that still say you ain't downloading nothing, okay, YouTube University is your friend. Okay,
I'm trying to tell you, it is. YouTube University. Man, I got me several degrees from YouTube.
Yeah, I got a PhD in university.
Man.
University. But and rest assured, for those of you that are even thinking about or considering whether it be social work or any other kind of field, go and do your research.
Mm-hmm.
As an educator, the first thing when somebody say, "I want to be whatever they want to be," I'm like, "Got it. What do you know about it?"
Yeah. So
I
would add to that. Do your research, but also shadow someone doing what it is that you want to do. If you shadow somebody and you see it gets real, like in social work, it's no 2 days are going to be the same, especially if you in them streets. Because people are different and people's experiences are different, fundamentally different. And so the textbooks that we have to assign and y'all have to read, I use them as a guide, but it doesn't negate people's lived experiences. And a colleague and I, we wrote an article on what was the article on, child? The article was on dismantling white supremacy and privilege in social work education. And we surveyed all these women, right? And they women of color. And it just showed that, the struggle for Black women has been real. All these women from all different walks of life who were in the field of social work the themes were they were feeling the same type of way that a lot of women of color feel in these higher educational platforms. Unheard, invisible, people stealing their IDs, all these different things. And so now everyone has this call to action. Like, we are called to act and we're going to do something different. And for me, it has to be beyond what you're putting on that social media about your call to action. You have to be so serious and committed to the work. You got to be committed to the work. And so with Leverage Your Impact, we are committed to holding people accountable and making sure that we're able to see the whole picture, not just bits and pieces of the narrative that, the dominant culture wants us to acknowledge and respect. We want to see the whole picture. We want to learn about mutual aid and the social workers of color who was doing their thing. Long before they had the educational platforms to do them, we were already doing this. We lived in the community that we served in, right? And so those mechanisms are important when we're talking about best practices and work with, our most vulnerable populations.
And this is just, I know this is a biggie because it's something that I deal with all the time. Every client, the first thing, before I touch on any of the other things, and almost everybody has this one thing, imposter syndrome. And we all going to experience it many times if you are moving and if you're accelerating in any field. But the one thing that is consistent is this. They get wherever they are, their story keeps them held hostage. So what I want to know is, how did you get beyond your story so that you can get to a place to serve others, to help them to live through their current situation?
Honestly, if I'm going to be honest, I'm going to say progress is a process. And I think that you can't rush the process, but you have to be willing to trust the process. And so for me, I think I had to get honest with myself. I mean, I was always solution focused when it came to helping other people solve all their problems, right? I wanted to make sure everybody was good. And as long as everybody else was good, it meant that I didn't have to look at the mirror and look at myself. And that became extremely exhausting. And so what I realized is that it cost me aspects of my own identity because I began to show up in spaces that forced me to shrink. And then I was wearing a mask both literally and figuratively. And so I think that the process, once you really have a come to Jesus meeting with yourself and put your big girl panties on or your big boy underwear on, and you have a conversation with, your higher power, I think that that's going to really lay the foundation for how you're going to be able to create a plan to overcome whatever it is that you're experiencing. And so I had to stop telling people about self-care strategy. This is what you should be doing, if I wasn't willing to apply it to my own life. And once I had that come to Jesus moment, that aha moment, he gave me an overstanding. I got an overstanding. And so I took that overstanding, and no, he wasn't right sitting next to me talking about, Taniko, this is what you need to do. But in the spirit realm, he gave me the tools and the resources that I was going to need to leverage in order for me to reimagine and reinvent what my humanity was going to look like and what my expectations for others was going to demand.
I love that. So we, as a matter of fact, Hope Jackson, my co-chair and my co-host is actually logged in to the channel, and she's watching that. So she said, "Trust the process." So I want to ask you this, because I was recently, it's 2 days ago, at a women's, it's Women's History Month. So it was a women's event. And primarily women of, it was a melting pot, but primarily women of color, of all colors, with a lot of women of color. And the speaker, the keynote, who was a local dean from a local I want to say the diversity section of one of the universities. And she said, listen, she said that we as women, that we're so used to operating in groups. She said, think about, we used to being together at least 3-4 deep. We got to get up, go to the bathroom together. We got to get up. We do everything together. And so when we start elevating within our organizations, we congregate together we sitting around talking about them people up there, right? And then when we become them people up there, now you are that person up there. And yes, we've heard the term that it's lonely at the top, and I'm here to tell you it's not lonely at the top, because there's other people at the top, right? And they're waiting for you to get there. They're just not, as I heard it said, they're just not coming down to get you. You have to come up there, and they're waiting on you. They want you to come there, but they're not coming down to get you. You got to get up there. But this is the deal. She said we suffer from being lonely because we're so used to being here. We don't know how to enjoy being alone. Now, not alone in the sense of just be happy being alone, but knowing that, okay, listen, I'm up here in this new little spot, and I'm lonely because I'm missing those people that I used to hang with, or used to roll with, but now I'm their supervisor, and I can't roll with them the way I used to because the conversation is different. Mm-hmm. So I'm here to tell you, for those people on here listening right now, you one day will be elevated. And those people that were your buddies here, they may still be your friends, but they may not be no longer friendly because you've crossed over into the thems.
Right. You one of them.
You're one of them. And so it's and you cannot complain down. Period. Mm-hmm. So here's the deal. Wow, since you up there and there's nobody there that you know already. So now it's going to be time for you to do this thing. You go find, because she said she got in the place. She's like, Lord have mercy. She said, I can't even, who do I talk about when I'm having problems? Right. I can't talk to them because they don't know nothing about this. All they're going to do is join me in the complaint because they don't know right? So what she did was she's like, okay, who are other women like me that look like me that hold these type of positions? And let's see if I can build a new tribe. Mm-hmm. So I'm telling you that every time you make a new move, you're going to build a new tribe.
Yeah. That's so true. When I was at a university in Indianapolis, I met a group of women, Black women. And in fact, yesterday, as a matter of fact, Dr. Anita Thomas became the president of, I want to say, Central College in Illinois. And she was kind of like the matriarch of the group, right? But it was through these women that I was able to connect, and we still support each other. And all of us, some of us some of them still live in Indiana, and some of them live in other places. But the support that I was able to galvanize from these women has meant a lot to me. And just to see her as the president now, and I knew her when she was the OD, I feel, and she a Black woman, I just feel so empowered. And I just know that our work in whatever capacity that we are operating from is not done. And I'm just starting to see more women of color coming full circle into their own and living their truth and standing up for things that, you know, are right and just. And I love it. It's very empowering. And so there's this motto, I think a lot of the HBCUs, the historically Black colleges, use them often. When you lift, I climb, or when I climb, you lift. And that's what we have to keep doing for one another so that each of us can become the best versions of ourselves in whatever capacity that we're here for. And so, and that's going to look different for everyone, but it's important and it's necessary.
There's a friend of mine named Jackie, and Jackie Glenn lives in, I believe she lives in Michigan. And Jackie Glenn wrote a book, and it's called Climb. I'm Lifting While I Climb. And she writes about that. Her book, that's what the book is. I'm sure I have it here. So many, Lifting While I Climb. And that is about that very topic. Is she talks about the significant, and she actually is from Jamaica, if I'm not mistaken.
That's why we gotta go. We gotta go.
Jackie Glenn, and Jackie talks about the fact that you have absolutely, as you are climbing, for two reasons. And one, if you're lifting as you're climbing, then you're taking somebody along with you on the journey, and you won't be alone. That's number one. Number two, if each one reaches one, you know, the old reach one, teach one. Mm-hmm. Well, each one reach one, then we can just pull up all, you pull up all your friends now on the same note. Now I'm gonna tell you two things that Bob Proctor said, the late Bob Proctor. He said that if for all of us, you've heard the term that you are like the five other people that you hang around.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Right. So he said there's a group of 6 or 7 people. There's a group of 6 or 7 people, and one of those people decide different. I want to grow. I want to change the way I think or I am so that I can elevate. They're changing. The people in the group, when you start treating them a little different. And it won't be because they don't want you to change. It's just that they don't want to change.
Right.
And they think that if in order for them to accept you and your change,
you're saying they have to change too. Yeah.
Exactly. And then
there they go. It's just that we ain't gonna be rocking the same way we was rocking because our visions ain't aligning. We ain't in alignment anymore.
Exactly.
And so sometimes our friendships, they're for a season. Every relationship ain't forever. So you get what you needed out of that relationship, because when you grow, I want to grow and elevate other people. I don't want to stay the same. I'm not the same person I was 20 years ago. I shouldn't be.
Oh my God. Listen, Dr. Taniko, we can have a whole conversation on, I want to say every time, and I just put a post on my Dr. Stephanie page a couple of days ago. I want to say like Monday. Mm-hmm. And because I was at an event, I went to a retirement a party, a gala, almost a semi-gala, semi-formal event. And it was a wonderful event. But I saw someone who really I've known from my past, but they know me more of when they know more about me as a teenager, like in my 18s, 17s. And so they don't know me at all.
Right.
Right. I'm grown with grandchildren, married with furniture. You understand? And so this person, they've seen me maybe every couple of years, they'll see me. And for the last 3-4 years, if not more of 10, they have said pretty much the same thing. I remember you when you was like 17, 18. Who would have thought you would have turned out like this? And I mean, the first couple of times I was like, I know me. I say the same thing, right? Mm-hmm. But this time they said it to me. They said it again. And I was like, this. And I said, you're right. This person's name. I took off my grave clothes a long time ago.
Real world over here.
Because see, this is some people can't see you. Listen, let me be clear. I'm not the same person I was last year. Mm-hmm. And I will not be the same person next year that I am this year. Right. And I pray that none of you are either, people watching online. Dr. Taniko King-Jordan, we should be growing, because if you're not growing, you are dying.
Yes. Yeah.
And dead things, they bump up against other people, kill the other things. Right. Yep. So we should be in the business of growing people, not killing people. Mm-hmm. So but I'm gonna use this. One of my mentors, Trevor Ice, he said this thing the other day, and we were like, ooh. He was talking about 10s and 5s. He said, and 6s and 7s. He said, most of us in our lives, the way we operate, on a scale of 1 to 10, we might be a 5 or a 6. We might be a 6 if we're being grown, right? Mm-hmm. Well, if we roll on average, we're about a 6. But if you are a 6, see, the 6s, they like hanging around with the 5s, the 4s, and the 3s, 2s, and the 1s, everybody below, because it makes them feel better about themselves. They are uncomfortable in rooms with 10s or even 8s and 9s because they feel uncomfortable because they're not ready to grow yet, or they feel that they need to be an 8 or 9 or 10 to be in that room. Right. 8, 9, and 10 don't care where you are. They comfortable with everybody in the room. They love to give their stories and try to bring you up to where they are, because they know that everybody that wants it can get it. Right. So a 10 will go in the room with everybody. A 5 and a 6 want to be with you. But in order for you to ever get to an 8, 9, or 10, you're gonna have to roll with the 10s. Mm-hmm. My brother-in-law, he kept elevating just the highest ranks everywhere. And I kept saying, how did you prepare yourself for the next one? He said, because when I was in 1, I operated and prepared myself as if I was already 2 positions up. Mm-hmm. So I'm saying to you, if you feeling right now that not you, but those person listening, if you are feeling like you are a 6 or 5, you feeling an 8, but you want to be a 10, then you got to go roll with the 10s.
Man, roll with the 10s.
Roll with the 10s. Because if you roll with the 8s, you will always be an 8. An 8 can't get you to 10.
It can't.
It's like, listen, you trying to be a thousandaire. That's what they call them, right? You trying to be a thousandaire, but you ain't made $1,000 yet.
Period.
So listen, a thousandaire can't teach you how to be a millionaire.
That'll preach. That will preach. Or that right there, that's gonna preach.
I promise you right there. Listen here, a millionaire can't teach you how to be a billionaire.
Right.
I don't care what y'all say. Y'all go ahead on and Dr. Taniko, you said it right there. You said that, listen, you ain't got no kids. You ain't telling me about how to raise no children.
Yeah, period. You're not. And if you don't have any lived experience, then I don't know. You kind of sus to me. Like, but you gonna tell me what's best for me? Nah, that ain't gonna work.
Yeah, you almost have to, and with that, thinking of your counselors, right? You almost have to get you need to have some background. Mm-hmm. Let me know a little bit about you.
You gotta have some skin in the game.
Because as your clients, do they let me just say this right now. If I'm coming to you about a marital situation, and you ain't never been married, and or even in a deep relationship, are you gonna be able to tell me how to deal with this situation?
I don't know. They're gonna say, well, according to this theory, this is what we should be doing.
I don't want no theory.
It's cool. The theories is cool, but it doesn't necessarily account for all the other experiences that have shaped your identity. And I think that that's the first step. You got to know who you are. Because if you don't know who you are, it don't matter if a therapist, a psychiatrist, a mental health therapist, whoever is talking to you, because you is not clear on who you are. So I think the most important thing for all of us is to do a self-inventory and get clear about who we are. And once we get that clarity, now we can sit down and forge a path or a plan on how we're going to accomplish the things that we set forth for ourselves. Not what the therapist said that they felt like you needed to do. Rather, what it is that you want to do. Because when you don't have any skin in the game, then you're not going to do anything. And that's what I find commonly with people. It's like, I'm creating the plan and I'm telling you, I'm narrating to you what it is that you need to do. No. Involve the clients and empower them to ask them what they can do, what is realistic for them to do. And you got to meet them where they at. And if this is all I got for you, then that's where they are. And then we go from there and we build, because it's all about human relationships. And if you can't develop human relationships, period, I don't care what your profession is, if you can't develop human relationships, then you're not giving what you need to be giving. And that's just it. And so I think in order for us as helping professionals in whatever capacity that we're in, we have to get real and honest about our own stuff. And until we get honest about our own stuff, because you're going to encounter situations to where it's counter-transference. Transference. That transference is when a client is projecting onto you, and counter-transference is when you haven't dealt with your stuff and a client is irritating you and you feeling away. So you want to be able to avoid counter-transference, and the only way you're going to be able to do that in a more seamless way is to own your deficit areas and begin the process of working to course correct those things.
You preaching now. I was talking to someone today, and they were talking about the fact that they said that they realized that they are empathic, so they're empath. Mm-hmm. And so and she said that she didn't realize this, and her mother, didn't realize this when she was little, and now, she's dealing with how this feeling, because she didn't understand why she was so super emotional and she could feel so much and so forth. And I said, and she equated it to be her being, what is it? Oh my God, an introvert. And I said, okay, well, I am an empath, but I'm not an introvert. Mm. I said, but I didn't know what an empath was. I just thought I was that I just could feel what everybody else thought. I didn't know the name, what it was. But I know that my sister is as well. But she just recently came. But this is the thing. She is an introvert. And the difference for both of us is how we able to get it up off of us. You follow what I'm saying? See, me, I'm like, that's it. Wait a minute. It's the transference, right? I'm like, right. I can feel it. It's on me. I got, So call it what it is. Where she may feel it, and it is she down. Mm-hmm. The person depressed, she down. They mourning, she mourning,
or
which is not healthy,
right?
And so I feel it, and like in the sense, I can, if I'm sitting there before you even say anything, I can feel what you're getting ready to tell me. But I have to have a whole conversation with myself. Okay, so what you're doing is you're going to listen and you're going to feel it, but this is not you. This is not you. This is not you. You follow what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But it's also, that's also a learned behavior.
Right.
I didn't always know what to do. I used to be falling apart after, I'm just so depressed and I don't know why. Well, somebody just dumped all over you. Mm-hmm. Mentally, without even saying a word, and often by sharing the story for the story that they were in. So I want to know for you, because as a counselor, you a social worker, baby, you see some stuff. You see some stuff, you hear some stuff, you learn some stuff, you know a lot of. How do you teach your clients? Because I know what school teaches you. We know what the books tell you what to do, but how do you keep your sanity? How do you let go of the day? As I like to call it, wash the day off. And what do you teach your clients to do?
I teach my clients self-care, right? I think that having self-care strategies are important. And I think that it's important to note that they don't necessarily have to cost you anything. And so I was reading this article in essence, because that's my thing, right? I guess, right? And it was talking about some resources that we can use to protect our emotional health, right? And so it suggested that we look for commonalities. We had to be willing to educate. We had to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. We had to be open to learning from our mentors, and again, acknowledge our bodies, what our physical bodies are saying, step away from the things that are no longer serving you, and to, employ some spiritual methods. So when I'm working with clients, I'm asking them what are the self-care strategies that they impart. And a lot of the times, clients, students, everyone thinks that you have to go somewhere, you have to spend all this amount of money. And I know for me, the way I'm able to de-escalate from my day, I go in the garage, I go on the porch, the balcony, wherever, and I just be playing on my video games on my phone until I feel like I'm good. And that really doesn't cost me anything, because 9 times out of 10, the app that I'm downloading is free anyways. So I use that as a tool, but I've also learned how to adopt a different methodology. I think, especially when you're talking about children in the child welfare system, right? We talk a lot about those adverse childhood experiences. And so I flipped it. So there's this new methodology, and it's talking about the 4 building blocks for healthy outcomes, for positive experiences or hope, right? And so it talks about how to develop relationships, a safe and stable environment, engaging in both civil and social engagements, and expanding on your opportunities for social and emotional growth. So those are the tools that I now, foster with those people that I work with. Let's see what your healthy relationships look like. Let's redefine what that is. But first we have to break down what we have understood to be normal, right? Because sometimes those are maladaptive behaviors, right? So let's look at what new relationships will look like, right? Surround yourself in those new relationships, the ones that are give and take. It's not just take, it's give and take. Or you're giving, and they're just sucking all the energy out of you, right? And put yourself in situations where you are going to be safe, but the environment is going to be conducive for how you're going to navigate, right? And engage yourself in these civic and social opportunities that exist in the communities. Get involved and develop opportunities like 1 Million Lives Transform, brand new you, for social and emotional growth. Do something that you haven't done before. Do it different, right? And so that's kind of what I do it myself, but that's also, the tools and resources that I afford to those people that I am working with.
You made some great points. I love all of those tips. I love all of them. As you were talking about you playing your video game, I remember with me and my husband, we both worked night shift patrol. We were in law enforcement. And when we got up at 8 o'clock in the morning, I could come in because, I was like, my superpower was just zap. Like, it was kryptonite. That sun coming up was kryptonite to me. I could come home, take a shower, get into bed, and be boom, knocked out. He had to power down. He could not go right to sleep. He had to, and I think it was the oddest thing. He's clearly sleepy, but he couldn't go sleep, and he would go in his office and just play the video games. But here's another thing I learned. Took me a while. Was this thing. We all have to change the channel.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the channel I was changing the channel as I was driving home.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I was still in a patrol car. I was like, the car is pointed in the direction of the house. So now I'm getting ready to get to my safe place. Right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And once I walk through the door, it's like the channel has shifted. I'm no longer in work mode. All I can think about is getting to sleep. I mean, it was a fight just to get in the shower, but I had to wash the day off of me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And for him, he has to change the channel. Now, I even teach my clients now, and this is for me and you. I don't have time to watch television. I really don't. But what I find, sometimes I got to watch television just to turn the channel.
Turn the noise off.
Because I got to watch TV just so I can stop thinking about work. Just so I can stop thinking about what's the next thing I need to do. So I watch television. And I mean, it has to be something just really, it has to be something that's going to grab my attention. So my husband like to watch it. I call it the Crazy Black People shows. It's like the 48 hours, you know, Crazy Black People. So he like to watch that show. And when he watching that, it's like, he's like, girl, so, you know, she done killed him and she hit the guy in the bottom. I'll be like, oh, so what so now he just sucked me into it. Why she kill him? You know, now I'm into it, right? Well, what? Well, how did they know? And I'm asking questions. Now I'm sucked into it. But until then, I'm like, I can't do it. Now, the only other way to shut my brain down is to read a book, because I love reading. But what's going to happen is I'm going to read a book. It's going to get good to me. I want to implement something. Now I got to go teach something. You know, I'm like, like you mentioned earlier, The Body Keeps the Score. I love that book. But then I think I jumped right on HerStory and was talking about the fact that the body keeps the score.
It does.
Right. We already know that, listen, you know, look, here's the deal. Your mama experienced some trauma back when she was young, or when you were, while you were in the belly, or before you were born, and the body keeps the score. Now she's birthing you. You come to the body, you know, all of who you are is who she is. Yeah. Now trauma is now passed on through the body. Yeah. And many of us don't think about that. This is why I'm always saying, listen, we are our mother's keeper. Our mother is our keeper. We are a little bit of everybody's trauma. And that is why we can't keep secrets. That's why we can't keep secrets. That's why we got to tell people the truth. Yeah. So they don't learn it, because they think, I don't know why I feel this way. Well, your mama experienced it. Your grandmama experienced it. Your great-grandmama experienced it. But you never knew about it because nobody ever spoke on it.
Yeah. And that psychological harm, it carries, it goes with you wherever you go. And so I had to stop putting myself in situations, just like if you are a victim of domestic violence, they say that you typically go back 7 to 10 times before you're done. So why then do we allow our employers to harm us psychologically, and we don't say anything? We still show up for work. We still do all the things that we were supposed to do to get a paycheck. Meanwhile, we're okay with the level of structural violence that they are bestowing upon us. I think that is no different than any other situation.
I like that correlation. I never even put that two together, but now that you've put it together, now I'm going to bring that back and use that. And I will cite my source, Dr. Taniko King-Jordan, first said it here on HerStory, OurStory, 1 hour of power. But no, that is a great correlation. I never thought about the two together. And that. Okay. Well, you all listen. It is 7:30. We're going to with 7:31. And you know, as always, whenever we go over and we don't want to get off, it's because it was juicy. So this is another juicy one. So again, Dr. Taniko King, thank you so much for being here. Those of you come right back here every single week, same place, same time. And the one thing that we always say, we end it the same way, and that is this. The great Lisa Nichols. Lisa Nichols says that we must shine our light. She said, you know, Al, shine your light so bright. And just shine it. And sometimes our light is so bright that other people say it's too much. And if it's too bright for other people and or yourself, put on your sunglasses, because this is their problem and not yours. Because I believe, and for you and me, Dr. Taniko, that our light, although it shows up from coming from us, our light is really what's inside of us. I heard a song, I want to say Lauryn Hill say, I'm not this hair, I'm not this skin, I'm the soul within. So
India Irie. Let me get
it right. India Irie, yes! And this is the deal. We are but the soul within, and that soul within wants us to shine our light, because if we're not shining our light, then the intended target, the intended people that are supposed to receive those blessings will not receive them, because we were fearful, right? We weren't ready to face everything and rise, but instead we feared everything and ran.
Right.
So instead, shine your light so bright. So listen, see you back here next week, same time, same place, and shine your light, because the world needs you. And so do I. Peace and blessings. Well, we're going to get up off in a minute. So Dr. Nico, you got any final words for the people?
Hey, life is too short to wake up in the morning with regrets. So love the people who treat you right, forget about the ones that don't, and believe that everything happens for a reason.
Boom.
If you get a chance, take it. If it changes your life, let it. Nobody said it would be easy. They just said it would be worth it. And I think that's by some man named Harvey. I don't even know the man name.
You said it.
Mick Mac somebody, but it ain't mine. But that's real spill.
I love that. All right, y'all. So that's it. Y'all heard it here. And until next time.